Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Industry Sessions. My name is Chris Wade, and I am your Music Forward host today. Music Forward is a national nonprofit organization inside the Live Nation family with a mission to transform young lives, inspire careers, and champion a more inclusive music industry. Music Forward provides artist development and career development programs to inspire the next generation. To check out our programs, find out more at the links in our chat. We're excited to bring you another episode of Industry Sessions today, where we connect our communities to the music industry and discuss current trends and career pathways. We have an exciting panel today, and I'm eager to get started, so I want to invite our special industry guest to join me on camera. Please welcome Leka Guimarães from C3 Presents, Tyler Scott from Live Nation, and Bennett Becker from CAA. Today, we're going to delve into festivals. With festival season returning finally, we are excited to explore the nuances of what goes into bringing a festival to life. So let's begin with our panelists telling us a little bit more about themselves. So let's start with Leka. Tell us a little bit about your career and your journey in the industry.
Hi, I'm Leka, as Chris introduced me. I work at C3 Presents. I'm the International Festival Director here. We're based in Austin. I moved to Austin in 2014. And before that, I was working with a local promoter for Lollapalooza Brazil. That's how I got connected with C3 and Live Nation. And I'm from Brazil, from São Paulo. Before I was in the fashion industry, and my first show was through like a director that worked with me in the past. And he had the Eminem show with F1 Rocks with F1 in São Paulo. That was my first one in 2011, and since then, here I am.
Nice, welcome, Leka. Bennett.
Hey guys, I'm Bennett. I'm a talent agent at CAA. I've been an agent for 4 years now. It was my first gig out of college, interned a ton of different places, and just kind of fell in love with the office here and you know, the system. And so I started as an assistant, and the agent that I worked for booked all festivals and co-ran our festival group. So started those relationships pretty early on. And then once I got promoted, I kind of picked up the territory where he left off, and book everything. I co-head our festival group here, book everything from ACL to Lala to Bonnaroo to Jazz Fest. Yeah, happy to be here today.
Welcome, Bennett. And last but not least, Tyler.
What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Scott. I'm a tour promoter and a festival talent buyer at Live Nation. And I've been with Live Nation for about 4 years. It's my first job out of college. I was an athlete at UCLA. I played baseball and football there. Ended up breaking my wrist pretty bad my junior year and had to medically retire from baseball, but could continue playing football. So started developing myself into like an NFL prospect and tore my ACL my redshirt senior year. So I was out here doing rehab. It's like a 7 to 9 month program, depending on how bad you do it. But I missed out on the combine and pro day and all that stuff. So at that point, the only other really thing that I invested all my time and energy into was always music. So I stuck around, tried to get my foot in the door of the music industry. Was broke off my ass out here for like 7 months, but I ended up getting an interview with Steelwool Entertainment, and the guy who was interviewing me, he had gone to UCLA too, and I came in with like my College World Series ring. So he's like, "Oh, you played ball at UCLA, whatever." We hit it off. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, I can't give you this job," but he's like, "I play on a softball team with a bunch of these Live Nation executives. And like the first game of the season is tomorrow. Like you should pull up and meet all the guys. Like you could just chill and network and play with them." And I had just got cleared to run the day before I had that interview. So I was like, I don't know what I could do, but I'm gonna show up. So I come out and play softball with them, and then one thing led to another. I was playing like 3 times a week with them, and like I was like a mainstay on the team now. And the captain of the team ended up being Omar Al-Jilani, who was SVP of touring at Live Nation at the time. And I was playing with them for like 3 or 4 months. And one of my teammates was finally like, "Omar, when are you going to get this guy a job?" And he's like, "Matter of fact, my assistant just like went out on the St. Pablo tour with Kanye, and like we have a temp right now. He's like, you want to come meet my partner?" And I was like, "Dude, I'll pick up your phone all day." So he hired me as his assistant. I was him and Ryan McElrath's assistant in the touring office, and I just worked my way up.
That's a dope story, man. Like, for real. And I love how you were able to like take what someone might have considered a failure or a loss and turn it into something that was super positive and a career path for you.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was supposed to actually, I got my very first job like a half hour before they called me and told me I got the assistant job. I was gonna be the front desk dude at Soul Cycle in Brentwood. So yeah.
I think you made a wise decision.
Better for me.
Before we get into the questions, I just want to say, music events and experiences are like near and dear to me. I worked in experiential marketing for many, many years. I did branded music tours all across the country. So I'm very, very understanding of the work that you do and the time that it takes and the commitment that it takes to put on great experiences for people. So to start off on a high note, I would love for everyone to share their favorite festival moment to date. Leka, would you like to start?
That's a really hard question, especially like I didn't mention, but like Lollapalooza, we are in 7 different countries, and it's so different each festival in each country. Like the culture changes, like the audience changes so much, the experience, that's hard to pick one. But I have like pretty epic moments. Like one of my favorites is in Berlin, Lollapalooza Berlin. The first year we did in 2015, we were at one site, which was the old airport, the Tempelhof. And then became like a lot of social issues over there. And we had to change 3 times the site. And it was super struggle. It was hard. And the final site we landed in 2017, was the Olympic Park, where the 1936 Olympic took place. So there's a lot of history. Jesse Owens won the Olympic. And we have the main stages in the bigger area, but we do the Paris stage, which is most electronic and rap, inside the stadium. So like watching those shows in that place with that history and just bringing a lot of like love and music and everything that comes, it's pretty special. So it was one of my favorite just because of the site itself that has a lot of history. And then we just come with all the Lollapalooza experience and music, and using that spot is pretty special.
That sounds pretty fresh for sure.
We had Kraftwerk that was also like in a 3D with the glasses thing show on the main stage, which was also pretty awesome in Berlin.
That's crazy. Tyler, what about you?
I'm kind of late. Honestly, I'm kind of late to the festival. I didn't go to my first festival until I was already working, like in 2016, when I was working in, Omar sent me to Lollapalooza to work hospitality for the Live Nation tent. So that was like my first festival I had ever been to. And I was working it. I was like working it.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah. But my favorite one I would have to say though is the very first year. My first experience in booking and festival booking was booking the title stage for Main America. That's like, it's like the smallest stage. So like they gave me the baby stage and gave me the baby budget and said, just do this, like take this off our plate, go do it. And man, I just watching the stage play off after I had put all the work in to book it for the first time, like it was like that was like the feeling that I had watching it play off. Like the second day, that's when I knew that this is something that I could do for the rest of my life.
And who were the acts you booked?
The biggest acts I booked that year was like I had Juice WRLD like at the peak of like it was like All Girls Are the Same and Lucid Dreams was at its peak. I had Sheck West on the Mo Bamba like at the top of that. And my favorite moments like of all these shows too is like right before the set, like where the 15 minutes of the DJ spinning in between the set changes, because everybody just piles in to go watch the act that they want to see, and they're all there just partying before they even come on. But that was like the Sheck West set was that shit was crazy. But I did Megan Thee Stallion last year and Roddy Ricch, all like right when they were starting to pop, you know. And it's like I had the baby stage, so I had all these huge acts that were just like blossoming at the time, but I had booked them early enough to where, you know, I still made it work for the budget, and that was pretty cool.
That's dope. That's dope. Ben, what about you?
I was gonna say, I feel like the first festival back after all this will probably be the best memory ever. I think I was thinking of, there's so many, like I was saying, I think one that comes to mind when I was thinking about this we used to book this festival. I think it was on USC's campus. It was called FYF. I don't know if they do it anymore, but it was just like a college student festival, but they always book like real talent. And I remember Travis Scott was like right off the first record, right? I guess it was right off a rodeo. And we were familiar with them, but you know, we'd never seen a live show or anything. And so we were backstage and we're like, all right, let's go check out this crowd. Let's like get in there, see it. I think it was headlining that night. And it was me and like two friends. And I remember we got in kind of the middle of the crowd. And like, you'd seen videos of Travis Scott shows at that point, but you just didn't know what was going to happen at a festival. And somehow we ended up in like the giant swirl of a mosh pit at a Travis Scott show. And I remember looking at my friend and it was like, I've never seen fear like that in his eyes. Like he was like, I'm about to get trampled right here. But it was just like electric set. And obviously what you see from every Travis Scott festival up to headlining. And it was cool. It was like one of the first moments of that.
Those Travis sets are something different for sure. In terms of producing a festival, and you all kind of played different roles in terms of it all coming to life. Respectively, what is the biggest challenge you face in your line of work in producing an actual music festival? Should I want to take that first?
Should I start?
Sure, feel free.
So even like part of my job, like I'm not the talent buyer, I'm not the promoter for Lola. It's Houston Powell, who is our favorite genius for years. You guys probably know him or heard about him. So my job, it involves all aspects of the festival outside the talent buying. But once the talent's confirmed, we do all the artist relations and all that. Like for my world, being an international festival, like always going to a different country, a different culture, a language that most of the time most of us don't speak. Like I can speak most of them because I speak Portuguese, but I think the challenge for us going to a different country, it's for sure to identify the best local partner that can help us translate the Lollapalooza locally, because we don't try just to push the US festival into the countries. We do have, our upside is like the relationship we have with bands like South America. We can book the 3 festivals, Argentina, Chile, and Brazil in 1 week. We put Argentina and Chile on the same weekend and Brazil on the second weekend. So for South America, our biggest challenge is to make the turnover between Chile and Argentina, and considering like importation, exportation, it's crazy, like the clearance of the equipment, etc. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge when we go to South America. When we go to Europe, I think the biggest challenge is finding the best partner, translating the brand locally, adding like, for example, in Berlin, we have a lot of local acts because German acts can hold that. In different countries, it's different. Like Sweden, it's way smaller, but we do have big acts in Sweden, like the Hives, that can also play that part. So I think when we go to Europe, our challenge is like, there's so many festivals and successful festivals, like how we can differentiate yourself and be an American festival in Europe and be successful. But I think the biggest one is like the culture and bringing the brand to the local culture and being accepted by them and adding the local bands and making that work.
Sure. I just want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say that you produce Lala in Argentina and Chile the same weekend?
Yep, it's crazy. Yeah. You see me and Simon, there was like Houston assistant going to the airport, holding the doors of the customs to say like, please, we need to get equipment. Yeah, it's, we get 2 plane cargos to do the back-to-back between Chile and Argentina. And we can only do from Argentina to Chile, not the other way around, just because of the local bureaucracy and protocols to clear all that.
So you set up, break down, and then overnight and go to the next country and then set back up again.
Yeah. And
then in a 48-hour period.
No, 24, but like the bands that play Friday play Saturday, the Saturday play Sunday, and the Sunday play the Friday. So the go from Argentina to Chile. And then, yeah, and we need to convince the big bands like Pearl Jam not to use their own cargo, to come with us, stay in our plane so we can make it possible for the smaller bands to do it. So it's a hard work. And 1 year when you have rain in Argentina, you put the Chile show at risk. And it happened. There was 1 year there was a heavy rain in Argentina. A lot of bands couldn't get to the time. So we started like moving around the lineup, getting local bands on Sunday, playing on Saturday. putting the rigor for Red Hot Chili Peppers while Chance the Rapper was on stage, and then we had to cancel the Sunday in Argentina, and it's a lot of emotion. But it's awesome, like, to make it happen. In the past, we did 3 weekends, and it was too expensive to keep the bands and their teams for 3 full weeks in South America.
Sure,
So when we could figure out that back to back between Chile and Argentina, it's a lot of risk, but it's worth it.
That's crazy. Okay, so Tyler and Bennett, who has a better story than that? Like, that sounds nuts to me.
And the second weekend, it's Brazil and Colombia in the same weekend, but then we have 48 hours between the days.
Oh my goodness, that's nuts. So Bennett, from your role, like, what is the biggest challenge you face normally?
Man, that just made me feel so lazy being an agent. Not all heroes wear capes. I wish we could give you a round of applause. You deserve it.
Really?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I play a very different role. Yeah, I mean, that I feel like I like help book the festival, and then you're like, I'm done, and then I get to go. But you're doing all the logistics. I can't imagine that. You know, I mean, so I play a very different role. You know, we represent one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. We represent a huge roster of clients, from, you know, headliners for all of these festivals down to developing artists. And so I think the biggest challenge for me is finding the middle ground of what actually makes sense on a festival. Like, I thought, like, I had a great point where, like, I think the festivals that are the most successful now outside of the major brands are the ones that have a real identity. You know, the ones that have a real, they're unique, right? And there's something, it's a very tangible experience that you can kind of put a pin in. So it's finding, for me, what are the artists that actually make sense on those festivals? And we're not just kind of pitching them to get artists on a festival, but actually they'll add value to the festival. And balancing that with, you know, the hundreds of requests that we get from artists each year to play these festivals, and giving them kind of feedback in real time. So it just feels like kind of over communication. But, you know, Tyler and Leica can attest, there's not a shortage of artists that want to play these festivals. You know, they to some extent book themselves because, you know, there's so many artists that want to get on there and want to advance their career like that. That, you know, I almost try to treat festival buyers like clients now, right? Like, I've got to super serve them in a way. It's because, you know, they hold the keys to these things. So it's kind of finding out how I can help them in the best way possible, get them everything that they need, while also, like, managing all of our clients' expectations and getting them real feedback as well. So it's just kind of juggling those two things.
Sure. And Tyler, your role is kind of complementary to Bennett's in a lot of ways on the other side of it. So what's your main challenge that you face consistently with your role?
Yeah, so talent buying is definitely different than producing a festival. Like what Leica does, I could relate to her struggles and what she was doing in South America from a festival that I produced with her for Lights On Festival, because my role with that festival is much different than my role with Made in America Festival, in that I'm just responsible for booking the talent for my stage there. But when it comes to producing a festival, there's so many different moving pieces. Like, and the most difficult part for me with that is just getting everybody on the same page. There's so many different parties that need to communicate, and you need to know who does what for every single element of every different thing, who's in charge of doing the front of house elements, who's scaling the show, who has the budget. Like, there's multiple different budgets, and they all get settled differently after the show. Like, there's just so many moving pieces that you need to know what everybody's job is in order to make sure that it runs smoothly. But, yeah.
Thank you for that. So in terms of, like, just zooming out a little bit, not so specific around just the festival piece of it, but, like, in terms of your education and your background, you know, what role did that play in your development to become a professional in the music industry? Whether that was your major, the classes you took, your own kind of, like I say, personal education to learn how to be good at what you do. Like, can you just explain a little bit of that in terms of how it made you who you are now?
Did I start?
Might as well. Like, you've been killing it today, so keep batting first.
I'm like going on this the round, like on this my screen.
Sure.
I think it will depend a lot on the age and generation. Like I'm 41, so I think when I was graduating, the backstage, I'm gonna call backstage, but it's not backstage, but like the word of like preparing professionals for this industry, that it wasn't much. It was super informal. There wasn't like nowadays I see there is like courses in college that focus in events and festivals. I would say like the biggest thing I think for me and not being American, I think first of all is like the production side of it. It's like being a witty person, asking questions and never being like slow and lazy in a way. There's like lazy, great jobs for lazy people too. But like, I mean, like if you're working at a festival, once the gates are open, it's like everything on the fly. It's real time. Like if there's a lightning coming, changing the bands, calling artists and changing slots, moving things around, or somebody like not feeling good or lines at the bathroom. I think you need to be a person that's down to do anything. I think for sure, like graduation, what you study makes a difference. I think for me, languages, I went to fashion school, but I think what prepared me to go from fashion to music and producing an event was from producing fashion shows to producing a show. And I think you can get like anything, any major will prepare you to something, but I think it's what you do after you graduate. Like Tyler was saying, he was lucky that something that went bad, and here he is. I bet he didn't went to school thinking like, oh, when I graduate, I'm going to become the talent buyer at Live Nation. Same to me. I never thought I was going to be working with music, and here I am. I think your skill set, it's more about like how you act more than just what the major you're studying. I think nowadays you do have more and more schools or stuff like Music Forward trying to educate and prepare these people. But back in the days, like in the 2000s, it's not. I think, I don't know if I said too much and nothing at the same time, but.
No, I think it makes total sense. It's I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I feel like it's kind of a mix of proper education and then educating yourself and trying to figure out how to take all the tools you can to be proficient at the work that you do.
And then in festivals is like grinding, literally. It's like what Tyler said. He was an assistant at Lola. We always bring like the assistants of talent buyers to work under Houston and Chicago. I think that's the best way to get into this business, is start helping from the bottom.
Yeah, for sure. Bennett, what's your take on education in terms of how it helped you become proficient at your work?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like my education was being an assistant, and I hated being an assistant. I was so ready to be an agent. And so I just worked like 18, 20-hour days for like 2 years. I was like, I don't want it to be on like the 5-year plan to be agent. Like, I just want it as soon as I can have it. And so, when you're doing that and you're not making any money, the one perk at the time was my boss booked the festivals. And so like we got to go to the festivals and I got to like, get all the Bonnaroo passes and hand them out. And if there were a few extra, like give them to some friends. And so you just, you felt great about it. But I think in festivals specifically, it's going to the festival, right? It's like being a part of that experience and knowing like, all right, this works, this set didn't work, and this works at this time on this stage, and that's the energy you want. And it's kind of cool that can be somebody's job. But you go to these and you're like, all right, that set was amazing to me, and you remember it forever. And then when you go to book the next year, you try to think, how can we recreate that? Or how can we create a different energy? And then when you get to work hand in hand with the artist and just see how that like immediate experience affects them, and they get on stage and they play to 10 to 20,000 people for the first time. And they're just like, they feel like a rock star for the first time. It's just, there's nothing better than that. But I think with festivals specifically, you got to know the festival, you got to know what works and what doesn't.
And so Tyler, you've been very transparent about your pathway into music. What from your education were you able to take and transfer from what you thought you were going to do to actually what you ended up doing professionally as a booking agent? Not a booking agent, but a talent buyer.
No, for sure. I was a sociology major. So, and I went to class, like I was a two sport athlete. And so like my seasons overlapped in the spring, like, and there's no off season for either of them. So it's constant all throughout, but like, Sociology, I'd show up to class. Like I like going to class. Like I wasn't like one of the athletes that like cheated to get through shit, but I do all my, I took classes where the majority of the class was based on papers because I could write well. So I would get notes and I would write my papers last minute and just do it that way. But if anything, it taught me how to get things done on time but I feel like I learned the majority of who I am, I've learned through being an athlete and the discipline that came with that. Like I knew graduating from college that I didn't think that I don't think there's going to be another time where I've worked harder in my life just because my schedule was like that. Like I wake up at like 4:30, go get treatment at 5. I'd have my lifts for the baseball team at 6. Then I'd leave, go to class from 8 to 12. I'd leave at 12 on my scooter and go to baseball practice from 12:30 to 6:30. Leave baseball practice, go to football practice from 6:30 to 8:30. Film study from 9 to 10, and wake up the next morning and do it again, or have a baseball game. We played baseball games on Tuesdays and then Friday through Sunday, and then in the spring, your football practices are all scheduled throughout the day because you're installing your playbook. But there's so many like similarities and just the things that I do on a regular basis that it just reminds me of everything that I've already been through. Like just play calling, being pragmatic, changing things on the fly, like it's all very, very relatable.
As you were talking, I was like, yeah, it's like being an athlete, basically. You're always moving through like these different disciplines and nothing is very like cut and dry. It's all kind of fluid, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I want to call out that I hear each of you saying individually is the grind and the work. I mean, you're talking 18-hour days for 2 years, right? And the level of input it takes to actually be successful, right? I mean, doing 2 major festivals in 2 separate countries within a 24-hour period, right? Like really, really grinding sun up to sundown. I think that's just something that I just wanted to call out. One, to give you all your kudos for the hard work that you put in, but also to be very, very real with our audience in terms of what it actually takes to make it, especially in the festival aspect of the music business. Speaking of education, though, we have a question from the audience from Mario Dolores. It says, hello, I'm a recent college graduate and majored in business management. I continue to apply for jobs in the music industry and I have no luck yet. Do you have any tips or suggestions for me? Thanks in advance. Bennett, take this one, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm sure it's harder than ever right now. I'm sure it only gets more competitive. I mean, I'm from DC. I moved to Nashville just on a whim. It wasn't even about music. I always played music and loved it, but I started a year behind. I transferred here as a sophomore. All my friends had like 2 internships by that point. And so I went on Facebook at the time and I messaged every artist that I liked and tried to like Google who their teams were. And I knew they were Nashville based and just be like, I was like, hey, I'll work for free. I'll sweep your floors. I'll like clean up spills. I'll get you coffee. Like I'll do anything. Like I just want to build that relationship. And I probably hit up 30 people and 1 person hit me back. And that was my first internship. And you kind of just have to I think it's relationship based for pretty much everything. And I think if you can find a couple of those relationships, like Tyler said the same thing, even just playing baseball on that team, right? And get in front of some of the right people and show them you're committed, that can really help.
Anyone else want to contribute to that?
Yeah, I would say the same exact thing. I just remember graduating and having my degree and I'm like, this degree means nothing. Like I didn't have no job experience, internships, like nothing. And like I couldn't get an interview, no nothing. Like it did not matter that I graduated from UCLA at all. And then at the time when I graduated, I guess Sony had just been through this big lawsuit on like slave labor. So now all the internships had to be for school credit and stuff. And I was like, I didn't care. I wasn't even trying to make money. I just wanted to I wanted to work for free, didn't care, nothing. But I couldn't get unpaid internships because I was out of school and didn't have school credit to get. So I was pretty stuck. But I would say, again, it's not, at least if I were to be hiring, I'm not looking at qualifications that way. Like I would invest in people the way that people invested in me. So I would say I would focus on the way that you're meeting people and networking and things like that. Like those were the things that really gave me my opportunity to even get experience in the first place. And that's that's the real opportunity, is the opportunity for experience.
One thing I'd add just real quick too, because I think you mentioned something that resonated with me. If you can find people that are almost alumni of even like music business programs or something that have real jobs, so many people would just grab coffee with me on the come up, or, you know, grab a bite to eat just to hear me out. I feel like I'll do that for anybody that hits me up now. And I think there's a lot of people that would do that if you can kind of track down who those people are.
Yeah, I would add the same, and don't give up, because it's hard, and the competition, especially I think nowadays, it's kind of like, we know we're going to have our golden age, but it's not 21. And be patient. Take any job that you see fit to have the chance to meet people. Like, if any festival is happening this year, try to get a job or volunteer somewhere to meet people.
And your life could change in a second too. Like I didn't have a job for 7 months. My parents were paying my rent. This shit was adding up. I was like, oh, my parents so much money. It's gonna take me 2 years to pay them back. And I was like, but I was just stuck around, and it was almost time to go home too. Like, but I'm glad it wasn't. So it could change in a second. I would have been at the front desk at Soul Cycle.
That's a fact. I hope you got them something nice. So there's another question from the audience. It's very similar to one of the questions I wanted to ask you. So this comes from Lydia Bursack. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Lydia, and I'm going to kind of mesh your question with mine. It's what have been some of the highs and lows working in the music industry? And like, in terms of highs and lows, like what are the things that bring you the most joy, and what are the things that really bring you the most stress? So Leka, would you like to take that?
I'll take that. Well, stress, it is a stressful job. Once the gates before, like once you're dealing with the bands to make sure the bands are there, to make sure the bands go on stage, and even like if the safety of all the audience, right? Like I think the most stressful thing, especially nowadays, depending on the country, you have different issues. Like you might have terrorism in Europe, and then unsafety in Brazil because in the middle of nowhere in bulletproof cars. I think stress is part of it. That's why I think you need to love its working hours and weekends, and don't think you're just going to be hanging out with bands and backstage. You're going to grind, you're going to clean toilets and do all that. I think the lows for me, I'll start with the lows. I think the lows for me, it's once you start working with your idols, you sometimes get frustrated with them. You think they're going to be awesome artists and be that person you think. And when you go deal with them, I'm sorry for my French, but they're dicks. So that I think one of my biggest frustrations with some artists, it's that like we're trying to put the best festival, a best performance for that show and for your fans, and it's not how it works all the time. At the same time, we have artists that you just fall in love just because they're awesome, and big bands like that. And the highs for me, my first Lollapalooza was in Brazil, 2012, and we had Foo Fighters after Foo Fighters hasn't been there in like 12 years. Was the first year of Lolla Brazil, 76,000 people, my first festival. I was skinnier than I am right now because I was stressed. And I remember like my hair was up. I didn't know what I was doing, but everything was going well, but it's stressful because it was 76,000 people. So 76,000 lives in your hand. And I was running around, and I remember John Silva calling me on the radio and calling me on stage. I was like, fuck, something happened. And I'm like, now everything's going to go down. Like, why is he calling me on stage? And he just say like, hey, breathe, count to 10, look at the audience. Your job helped 76,000 people have one of the best moments of your life. And since that moment, that's my proud, like my best moment. Every festival, it's looking at the crowd having their best moment of their life. They're going to remember it. I even get chills and goosebumps. It's pretty special to watch the crowd.
Yeah, that feeling is pretty, you can't really replace it with anything else.
That's the moment you remember why you're doing what you're doing, and not eating, not sleeping during the weekends when everybody, your sister's at home, sleeping in a nice bed. You remember why you're doing that.
That's right. That's right. Tyler, what about you? What are some of your highs and lows, and what brings you joy and stress?
I mean, it's hard to like even speak to like one thing in specific because it's all just like all encompassing. But I mean, yeah, the best part is watching it play off. It's not even the same as being at a festival, like as a festival goer and going to watch your favorite artist play. Like it's completely different experience. But I'll speak to like the most the part I hate like the most, from at least from the booking side, is billing, dude. Like billing is a nightmare every festival. Like you can never make everybody happy. Everybody thinks that they should be higher on the bill, like unless you're the headliner. Like, but it's always a thing. And that's the one thing I have like the least amount of control over too, because I'm not gonna tell Jay-Z to put so and so's name before. Like it's his festival. Like it's not my festival. Like I don't bill the artist, so that part is always a problem every single time we put the lineup out. And I feel like nobody even cares where their name is, who's looking at the thing itself. It's just the ego thing. But that's just a battle that I go through every time it's time to announce or go up with something.
I took a few notes down, not a ton before this, specifically to that question, and my answer was billing. It's the worst because, like Tyler said it perfectly, it's like you're not going to remember where you were billed.
If the agent doesn't care about billing and the promoter doesn't care about billing, like the billing, all about the artist though.
That's crazy. I think, to be quick, the best thing about it is just like the madness in the moment on site when you're there. I remember we were at Bonnaroo and we booked Cardi B to close like the second biggest main stage there. And I remember her like flight was late. And so her agent, Mark Cheatham, called me because it was on site and was like, hey, can you just like go back there real quick and just like make sure everything's cool. And so Cardi comes out just, like full outfit, ready to do her set. And like, I just popped out. I'm like, hey, I'm with Cheatham. And she just like gave me the biggest hug. And I was like, it was like right when Bodak Yellow was, just like crushing too. And then she went on stage and just killed it. And I was like, all right, this is the coolest thing ever. So, I mean, it's just the cool moments that happen in festivals. Why we all love them.
Dope. I have something that I want to dig into a little bit more about billing. But before I do that, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we talked about stress, right? And this is a really, really stressful business. So what do you all individually do to take care of yourselves when you're trying to decompress from the days and the weeks and the months of grinding? Anyone can take that one.
Should I start again?
Sure, of course, always.
But I think it depends on each one. I think one of the biggest, you're right on, like mental health is one of the most important thing, and it's becoming more and more as we go in our festivals, and especially working in an environment where you have alcohol, drugs, and everything that comes together, right? And the egos and meeting your idols and the same, like you have a lot of things going on. I think the company itself, it's offer many tools to the employees and resources to ask for help. But personally, I think it's literally giving the time to rest. I don't think there's anything else. And during the festivals, and you learn with age, like I can tell you when I was doing a festival at 30, I would look way worse on a Monday after a festival than I look now at 41, just because I know better how to take care of myself. I can give a great example for us when we went in Chicago from 3 days to 4 days. We didn't know yet how to plan our body for the 4th day of festival straight. Like we know how to do 2 weekends, but the 4th day, and we all woke up with like fat eyes, our voices like, okay, next year we need to do better. You also keep learning how your body acts, like, because you're not going to eat the best food. So you try to like feed, be hydrated. The company forces the employees also to try to do that and take care of each other. I think one of the biggest thing, like we work, like when we were at the festival, we were like a family, like Houston, myself, Joe Howard, and Sophie, like we, especially abroad, that we don't have the structure that we have in the US, and we're in a different country, don't speak the language, you're in the radio, like who do I call? I think the main thing is taking care of each other and taking care of your body. And after the festival, the mental health, ask for help if you need, do not ask.
For sure, that's true. Tyler, what do you do to take care of yourself when you're decompressing from the big shows?
Honestly, I'm still figuring it out, man. Like I do things for myself, but like the more they say more money, more problems, the more responsive, the more power and you get, the more responsibilities there are, the more things there are to worry about. So as you get more and more responsibilities, you constantly got to come up with new ways to keep yourself sane when everything's moving at 100 miles per hour. But I do specifically remember like the very first time I booked that title stage for Made in America. I remember one of the agents who I booked their act for the stage, and she's like, man, look how good you did. And she was like, you got to make sure you take a day off next week, because you're at like the high right now, and you're just going to crash next week if you don't take care of yourself. So I hadn't even thought of that. Like up to that point, I was still just riding the high, and she's like, you got to be careful. You got to be conscious of it. So that's the first time it really entered my mind when it comes to like booking and my actual stress of my job, you know.
And it's a very real thing.
I'm used to just not thinking about stress. Stress is subjective, you know. So it's hard to draw the lines for yourself when those lines are constantly moving. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
No.
Bennett, what do you do?
Yeah, I think something too that's great. You know, we all work at big companies, and you know, CAA has given every employee a subscription-based meditation app, a free subscription to kind of like virtual counseling if you need it or want it. And you know, I think the team aspect is really helpful. You know, I think people get it, and I think you've got people who've been doing it for 10, 20 years longer and know when you're probably hitting those points where you need to just take a breather, right? Or, you know, if I want to go on vacation, I can actually go on a vacation unplugged, because, you know, when my colleagues and my teammates need to do that, I'm going to pick up the slack for them too, right? We kind of help each other like that. I'm kind of in the same way. I feel like when I get overly stressed, it's almost just like me kind of pouring too much into the wrong things and prioritizing things that aren't as impactful. And so I just, you know, it sounds cliche, but like legit, I try to meditate, I try to run and work out, I try to eat healthy. And, you know, some weeks I do a terrible job, and it's, you know, I can feel it. And sometimes I do a good job. I think it's just day to day. And, you know, just, you got to prioritize that, you know?
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing and being very transparent about that, because I feel like that's an aspect of the business that people don't really want to talk about, you know, in terms of like what it takes to be in it, but also the toll it can take on you. So I appreciate your candidness. This is a question that comes from the audience, but it goes back to booking. It's for Bennett and Tyler from Marigny Hemingway. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. For both talent buyers and agents, what do you look for in talent when you're booking, and what is usually the budget, and how is that determined?
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. I'll be the first one. I'll book what I like listening to first. Like I have an ear for music. That's the only reason I knew I wanted to work in music as soon as I was injured. But I'll check for stuff. If I hear something and I think it has potential to be bigger, I'll book stuff based off the single. I'll get it early and I'll get it for the right price. And then by the time my festival plays off, it's worth 20 times as much as what I paid for it. You know, you might book an artist for $10,000 in March, and by September, when your festival plays off, the same artist is worth 200 grand for a festival, you know? So I try and get stuff early, and budgets vary depending on stages. I don't know how C3 specifically books their stuff. I know we have talent conversations every once in a while, but my structure, at least when I got my first opportunity booking for Made in America Festival, title stage budget was like, it was low. Like it was less than what you would pay for one act on any of the other stages. So it's like I was balling on a budget. Like I had no bread, and so you check your boxes and you see where you get the most value at. So that's kind of how I approach like our budget for that. And then Lights On Festival, I'll speak from from the producer side, like in budgeting. You take your costs and how many tickets you think you're going to sell. You scale your show based on how many tickets you could sell at X amount of dollars. And then you put that against your expenses, and that's what you're either walking out with or what you're paying for your talent budget. Anything left over is what you have for talent outside of your other costs. So that kind of forms the larger picture of what your talent budget is. And sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less, but depending on the other things that you're putting in your festival, front of house elements, maybe this screen costs more than that screen, and now our talent budget's $5,000 less, you know? So it's a sliding scale. There's so many different things that go into it, but it's easier if you're only focused on one element of it. But from a producer standpoint, you got to assign those responsibilities based on what needs to get done.
Sure. If you are an artist and you are trying to get on a festival lineup, how should an artist approach trying to become a part of a festival?
Hire a good agent.
Right.
Silver bullet, right? Like,
Relationship.
Yeah.
what'd you say, Lekka?
I said, like, have a great relationship. I think what Tyler said is pretty right. Like, when you're building a festival with 8, 9, 5 stages, you have a talent budget for each stage. Depending on the market, if you're talking about like Chicago that sells out pretty quick, you worry less with the kind of headliner you're bringing to sell out your festivals and putting. So you can play around like saving more money with headliners and spending more money with your afternoon mid-tiers. In South America, that where you need a huge artist to sell out your festival. So you spend a lot of money on your headliners. So you try to go after local bands. And I think for a band that's beginning how to get there, it's putting out stuff and having a great performance, and then hiring a great agent, a great manager, because I think management sometimes is left behind, and it's one of the main things to keep the band producing content and being known, because sometimes you hear an artist and you book them 6 months before, and then when you get to the festival, he might be bigger, like Tyler said, and that's the key of a good talent buyer promoter, is to see those things, especially in the electronic world, which is faster, and not disappear, not be a band with one hit song and have a great performance.
I totally agree. I think too, like Tyler and Lekka and the people at C3 and Live Nation, like they know what they're doing when they're booking festivals. Like they've booked incredible festivals that are sturdy and have been there for years, right? So, I just try to treat it from an approach of like, if Tyler's booking something, I'll just be like, it's almost like sharing music with a friend. You're like, all right, like I love this. I think this is going to be huge. This is what's happening. And just finding that way to get them in that moment and get them that slot. And I think something I like to do too is almost just trust the talent buyers too. It's like, all right, I had a conversation about Bonnaroo the other day, and it was a band who really wants to play it and can sell like 2,000 tickets in Nashville. And so I just asked the buyer, I was like, hey, is this like a main stage thing? Is it second main? Is it a tent? And the feedback was like real. He's like, look, we love to start in tents. It's really how we grow the best. And it's just trusting the people that know what they're doing the best. Like I said, whether that's a manager or an agent, focusing on your craft as an artist, getting your music to the best place you can be, and then just kind of trusting the other pieces to do the same on their end.
So all you artists out there, you can't say you don't know now. You know what to do. Now put in the work and get there. We're going to open up the questions from our audience. We're going to pass it over to Phoebe Wickham, and she's going to ask you a few additional questions before we close out.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I'm the social media producer intern for Industry Sessions. And I have a couple questions. First of which being, I was wondering, who would you say is like the most overlooked yet like extremely vital person to a festival? Because I feel like there's a lot going on behind the scenes that festival goers don't usually see.
Anybody, I would say production managers, for sure. Like there's so many things that I don't know how to do on the technical side of things. And like, I went on tour and got some like on the road experience touring with like the band for Lil Wayne at the time when we were touring with him. And just learning how they do everything. They do, talking to the drum techs, the audio engineers, and like the lighting techs and the cues and the person who creates all the different background visuals for the screens and stuff. It's just insane what they do and all the different channels that they're filtering things through. Like, and that has to be done for every single show. Like, and on a tour, it's 35 of those shows and they're traveling, So that, I think they're kind of like unsung heroes. And if something goes wrong, they're the ones who look like they're the ones whose jobs are in jeopardy. It's not easy. So, but I always get nervous for them because there's a lot of things that can go wrong on their end too. So. Oh, and shout out on my ticketers though. The ticketers are definitely unsung heroes. They get it. I feel so bad for ticketers. Like I couldn't be a ticketer. Like, and they're all like the nicest people. Like, and just take care of people all day. Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's hard to name one, but definitely production manager is one of them, because without them, the shows won't happen. But I think one, at least in my world, that it's never really seen from the like as a job, part of the production of the festival. But one thing that we really, it's our main thing, of course, the bands and everyone else, but it's safety. If we can get the fans and bands safe home after the festival, we won't have it next year. So the security team needs to be so on point with the ticketing, with the production manager, with the security team from bands, with the airports and everything. And he's a key winner, like for us, especially going abroad and them dealing with the local agencies, with the CIAs of the world. And it's pretty like without them, we wouldn't be able to put anything together for sure. But there's a lot of people that's super, like from the production director, the side ops guys, the guys that decide where the bathroom's going for last lane. So it takes a team.
I was gonna say my assistant Grant, I shouldn't even call him assistant, he's like a partner, but the guy does so much, does all the ticketing on our end, make sure every artist that we book and their teams know exactly where they're playing, when to show up. You know, it's just like all those unsung heroes that really keep it together.
Nice. And then another question I had was, you guys have all kind of talked about what it's like being at the festival that you've booked or, you know, worked, and how it's very different from being there as a festival goer. I'm curious as to if you have any time at the festivals that you have booked and worked to actually enjoy the festival, and if you ever go to festivals that are outside of like your reach, and if you ever like, if you can really enjoy them, or if you get like stuck thinking about the inner workings instead of really just like enjoying the music.
I'm really good. I'm able to separate the two pretty well. Like I could enjoy music at any given moment of the day. So it doesn't stress me out too much being at a festival. Like even if I'm working, like I'm able to enjoy it. I think that's a really important part of it. Honestly, there's like hours and hours of time before the show that you're getting stuff done for the day, and you should be able to enjoy that time spent too, because it's going to be a lot of that. Yeah.
I feel bad. I mean, for sure. I mean, once the things are booked and they're on sale and we're on site, you know, I'm saying, hey, making sure things run off without a hitch. I feel like you have just a totally different perspective. I wish you could enjoy it. I hope you do.
We do. That's the awesome part of it. Like you will see me in the crowd in the GA if I'm not busy. I'll be with the radio and with my head like this, trying to listen to the radio. But I think 99% of the people here working with us, you will see them enjoying. And the feeling of being the crowd, watching something or your favorite band on stage that you also help to be part of that shit, you can have fun. Like we do, like the gates open and then you have like things are going, and until something goes wrong, you're there just like kind of controlling the match. You have a huge team. Everybody knows what they're supposed to know what they're doing. So we do have fun. And it's like one of the best moments is Sunday when everything done, but we have a post-fest depression too.
Amazing. Good to hear. Well, that's
And
all.
we do go to other people's festivals, like even within the family. I'll go to any festival if you invite me, or if any band invites me, or if any friends is going, I'll love it just to see what people are doing and to enjoy it.
Amazing. Well, that's all the questions that I have for all of you. So thank you for taking the time to answer them.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. So for our last question, really quickly, can each one of you give a final piece of advice to our young audience that is interested in joining the music industry? What would you want them to know? Let's start with Bennett.
I think if you're getting into it and you're not an artist, I think my biggest piece of advice is just realizing, you know, you're in it for somebody else. You know, it's not about you. It really is about the artists, and it's about the fans, and that's how this industry works well. And I think if that can be your approach, you know, you can be really successful. But I think it's just keeping that perspective, because there are a lot of egos, but at the end of the day, like, I'm here to work for the artists and to help create a great experience for the fans. And, you know, I feel like that mentality wins.
Tyler, what's your nugget, your jewel, your gem?
I would just say bring energy to everything you do. Like I said, I had no background in music. I just had the drive to do it and was willing to stay out here long enough to make it happen. But that's something I focused on. The one thing you can always control is your attitude. So try and bring a good attitude to everything that you do, everybody that you speak to, treat people right, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's another big thing. Like you'll see, like feel like the longer you're like in the game and don't ask the same question, the stupider the question seems, the longer you don't know it for. So I came in not knowing nothing, and I was asking everybody everything. I had never used Excel ever in my life before, and was doing like business plans in 3 months. But like, didn't care about looking stupid. So just I would say just ask questions. Don't be afraid to admit what you don't know.
That's real. Leka, what would you like to share?
I'm gonna second exactly what both said, and about like first, like staying humble in this industry will take you a long way, because you can fall from your own ego at some point. It can be later in the game or early. You learn that lesson at some point. And I think second one is ask questions. I agree with Tyler. Like it's better to look stupid once than be ignorant forever. And what I see working with the kids and everybody that wants to work, especially, international festival, it's awesome, we're going to travel the world with the bands and hang out with them. It's like, no. I had many assistants that's like, I don't want to do what you do. I think it's asking questions. The thing I say, like if you can't change the idea, it's a bad idea. It's because once you're dealing with real life and entertainment, you might need to change your idea, and you're not going to have enough time to study. And so listen. There's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen more than you speak and ask questions. I think and don't give up. Like it's a hard business, and go after what you want. Don't be afraid.
And speaking of that, I just want to commend each of you for making it through, right? Last year was, no one knew what we were going to be here and what it's going to look like, right? And you all have, trudged through, and we're here now, and it looks like the live aspect of the business is coming back, and we'll be thriving hopefully very soon. So salute to you all for having the solidarity and the intestinal fortitude to make it through a period that no one really knew what it was going to look like. So salute to you all. I wish we had another hour, 2 hours to talk about so many different aspects of live, but we're at the end of our time together. So I want to thank each of you for sharing your insights, and to everyone for joining us today.